Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Britt. This is Coffee and Makeup. Today is a different video and I'm making this video specifically for people who are interested in the birth control method Implanon. This is the birth control I have. I've had it for about a year and a half now, and I've also done a lot of research on birth control methods and how birth control works, the side effects, etc. So I'm making this video to give you guys the information that I have learned through my research, scholarly articles, of course, not just Google searching, and also to tell you about my personal experiences. And I also think it's really important to put this video out because when I was looking at Implanon, there was not a lot of information available, especially on YouTube. And when you just Google search Implanon or any birth control method, you're going to get a lot of results from the people who provide this birth control method or who manufacture it, and that's not unbiased information. So I'm trying to give you the most unbiased and accurate information possible and just my own personal experience. So let's just begin at the beginning here. What is Implanon? Implanon is a rod that is injected into your skin just below the skin surface. You can actually feel it. I can feel mine, which is injected right here. And it contains the active ingredient in the pill, which is progestin, and that's what prevents pregnancy with hormonal birth control. And it will release this ingredient for about 3 years. There's some debate as to whether it would be effective after 3 years, but you're safe up until 3 years, says the research. And this is a very interesting form of birth control because it only contains progestin, and that is, like I said, the active ingredient, but a lot of other birth control, hormonal birth control forms also contain estrogen. And what estrogen does is it stops some of the side effects of progestin in the body, namely it helps to regulate your periods and prevent irregular bleeding. So with Implanon, you're more likely to have irregular periods and irregular bleeding, and I will discuss later how I deal with that symptom. However, Implanon is one of the most effective forms of birth control, and it's on the same level as the intrauterine device, the IUD. So if you're thinking about birth control and you want something that's extremely effective, consider those two options. My gynecologist explained it to me like this: if pregnancy were a life-threatening disease like cancer or something else, no doctor would prescribe the pill because the pill is just significantly less effective than these two options. However, we know that that's not the case, that it's not a life-threatening condition, so it's really up to you and what you're comfortable with. But as far as effectiveness, the implant is as good as it gets. So now let's talk about the scariest part of this whole conversation, which is the implantation process itself. So the implant, at least as I got it, was preloaded into a gun-like device, and it has a really long, extremely thick, and terrifying needle on the end of the device. And my gynecologist did some local anesthetic, and this is where my implant is. It is on the inside upper portion of my non-dominant arm. So my gynecologist used some local anesthetic, and then she inserted the tip of the needle right here, shot the gun, and the implant went straight in, and she did a great job. I didn't have any complications. It's directly under the skin and I can feel it here. And all in all, it wasn't that bad. It is a very intimidating looking contraption, and it was a very scary process, but it wasn't very long, and afterwards my arm was a bit sore. I had a little bit of scarring right where the needle went in, but it really was not that bad. It was almost like getting a flu shot or something similar to that. So really not as terrible as you might think. Then the first week that I had the implant, I experienced some strange symptoms. I had flu-like symptoms where I had bodily chills and just a general sense of unwell. And I really do believe that that was caused by the implant. And of course, it's a foreign object that's being basically forced into your body, so your body may react in a certain way, but that went away within the week. And then in the month, I would say, after getting the implant, my arm and the area around the implant was extremely itchy. And I remember thinking, like, is this how it's gonna be for the whole 3 years? But it's really not, and my body is completely used to it now. I don't think about it, I don't feel it there unless I accidentally like brush against it, but it's really not an issue for me at all. So it is maybe a bit uncomfortable, the process, and in the first month or so you might have some symptoms and discomfort, but at this point I'm a year and a half in and I do not have any problems with it now physically or any any issues with the way it was implanted. Okay, now let's talk about some of the other symptoms you might expect from Implanon. So like I mentioned earlier in the video, this is a progestin-only birth control method, and that means that you can expect some unfortunate symptoms, and one of them is acne. And the reason that birth control is prescribed for people with acne is because of the estrogen element that's in a lot of birth control. But with progestin only, some people do experience some acne. I did not have that symptom. I also didn't have any weight gain, which is a common symptom of birth control, or maybe it's not as common, but it's a very feared symptom of birth control. I did not experience that, so that's great. One symptom that I mentioned earlier that I definitely did experience was the disruption of the menstrual cycle. So I was taking the pill before I got the birth control implant, and when I was taking the pill, I had a regular period, which I really enjoyed because I knew that I wasn't pregnant each month, and it was kind of like a just like a little insurance policy, I guess, where I knew that I wasn't pregnant. And with the implant, my period, as far as like the monthly regularity, went away completely, and I was concerned about that because I did like to know. So what I did is I bought, where are they? I bought a giant pack of little dip pregnancy tests on Amazon, and for those of you who don't know, you definitely don't have to spend 20 bucks at the drugstore on 2 pregnancy tests. I got these on Amazon. They're 20 here. They were about $1 a piece, and they're just little dip tests, very easy to use and quite accurate, and they are definitely good for my peace of mind. So if I'm ever concerned, I can just take one of these tests. It's not expensive, and I don't have to basically have a regular period to know that I'm not pregnant. So I would suggest investing in some of these just for your peace of mind if you're like me and you get a little worried. So yeah, so I don't have a regular period, and I don't really remember even what cramps feel like. So when my friends talk about having terrible cramps, I'm like, oh, that's so bad, and I like vaguely remember the feeling, the agony of having cramps, but I have not experienced cramps in probably like 2 years. So that's a real benefit of the implant. The other thing though is that in the first 5 months, I would say, of me having the implant, I had almost constant spotting. It wasn't like heavy flow period, but it was very constant spotting, and it was just very inconvenient because I would have to buy like bulk packages of panty liners, wear them every day. So that was extremely inconvenient. At this point, I don't have as much spotting. I basically don't have any at all, and then every so often I'll have just the smallest bit. One other thing I want to mention while I'm on the subject of symptoms is that when you take a birth control, like most forms of the pill with progestin and estrogen, the estrogen carries its own set of side effects. So it's there to prevent one side effect, but it has its own side effects. And one really important one is that it can decrease your rate of bone turnover. So the way your body is developing your bones, it can hinder that, especially if you are an adolescent woman. So if you're younger, I would really consider getting the progestin only, even though it can be a bit inconvenient with the whole period and spotting thing, because you don't want to have osteoporosis when you get older, and that's really serious. Like, that's something that will affect your health tremendously. So do consider that, and look up all of the symptoms and the risks that are associated with birth control, because it is a medicine. It is changing your body and giving signals to your body. I'm not going to mention them all here, but birth control will increase your risk of certain cancers while decreasing your risk of other cancers. So you want to weigh all of this. But in conclusion, I really want to encourage you, if you are looking into birth control because you're sexually active, I would really encourage you to continue pursuing it and find some form that works for you, whether it's the implant or maybe it's just condoms, and you can buy those on Amazon too in an unmarked box. So just saying. Or you could get the pill or anything else, but you really want to follow through and be your own advocate. Also, I think it's worth mentioning that when I got this implant, I was in school and I had a low income. So I qualified for my state's family planning program, and I got it absolutely for free, which I'm so grateful for. So look into all of those resources that are out there to help you, that are available to you. And if you are sexually active and you don't want to have a baby, it is your responsibility to yourself to follow this through to its conclusion. And I hope that this video was at least somewhat helpful to you. So thank you for watching, and if you have any more questions, leave them below. Like I said, I've done a lot of research, so hopefully I'll be able to answer some or maybe direct you to some good resources yourself. Thanks for watching, guys.